2, 3.
Okay, we're talking with Jim Frazer, Lowell Keith Frazer, on the 5th of September 2004. We're in his home in Florida waiting for Hurricane Frances to hit us sometime tonight or tomorrow. And Dad, let's start off talking about your birth in Mount Liberty, Indiana.
Okay, first of all, my mother and dad were Walter and Thelma Frazer. Her name was really Opal Williams when she was born. We were in both of them were born very close to where I was born. And back in those days, we didn't move around very much because no one had cars and things like that. So anyhow, my dad asked her to marry him in year 1920, and he did it by writing her a letter. I've never seen that before, but whatever. In any case, she said yes, so they got married. And so in 1925, I was born, those days you didn't go to a hospital. The doctor came to our house and helped her whatever she needed, and so that was all that was going on then. That was 1925. Happened to also be the same year my dad got his first car, so he got me in his car in the same year.
And he was teaching school at that time, right?
That's right. He is teaching grade school, and just it was only about a mile and maybe 2 miles from our house to the school.
What they call the Junction School, or was
he taught at Junction. He taught at Mount Liberty. He taught at Salem, and I'm not sure. There must have been a few others. They're just all of those schools I just mentioned are within 5 miles of our house. And
so he was a teacher when you were born. Was he your teacher through all of grade school?
Well, before I started school, my mother was my teacher. Really, she taught me how to read and do mathematics and stuff like that. So when I was five years old, I started to school, and Dad was my teacher then. And I had already learned most of what you learn in the first, second, and third grade. So the first 2 grades I did in 1 year. And then I did the 5th and 6th in 1 year. So basically, when I got finished with grade school, I was only 14. I'm sorry, I was only 10. And then I went to high school, and so I finished high school at 14. The high school was in Nashville, Indiana, just about 7 miles from my house, 6 miles maybe, something like that from the house.
So maybe about 1939 you started high school. You finished high school in 1939.
Well,
and you started going to IU, Indiana University, before World War II broke out.
That's right. I started in 1940. I started in university, and I thought I liked mathematics, so that's what I made my major. There's no other reason for it, and I had physics and chemistry for minors, and so by the time I was almost 18, I was a senior. My birthday's in May, so anyhow, they drafted me into the Army, so even though I only had a month or something like that left in school for that year. So I waited another 4 years to get my bachelor's degree. The Army, when the Army was what I went into as a private, but very soon they made me put me into the U.S. Army Air Corps as a cadet, and pretty soon I learned, took all kinds of tests. They sent me to, for example, up into Iowa to learn how to fly, And by the way, it's the first time I've ever been in an airplane. I had never seen one of those things. It's a Piper Cub, Taylorcraft kind of thing. So I took 10 hours of flight training. Anyhow, that's over with, and then they also sent me out to Las Vegas for gunnery training, and then finally down to Monroe, Louisiana for navigation training, and that's where I met my wife, Carol. And that's the reason that when I was there, I went to a party down on the bayou where Carol's dad drove the truck with cotton sacks in it instead of hay sack, right? So we had a sort of a cotton sack ride down to the bayou, and that's where I met her. If I hadn't gone to that particular party, maybe I wouldn't be making this story today or whatever. There's a lot of you wouldn't exist. Anyhow.
So that was 1944 when you met Mom, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the Army sent me down to, Air Corps sent me down to Tampa to get our crew together to go to Europe, and she came down there, and we got married down there. That started our life together, and so all the rest of the time she went with me until we. Pretty soon after that, and less than a year after we got married, the war was over in Europe, and but wasn't quite over in Japan yet. But anyhow, all that shifting around and around, but the war was over in Europe, then it was over in Japan. So they sent me to Japan in air sea rescue work, and Carol had to go back to her home in Louisiana for a year and a half, I guess it was.
So that was maybe September, October of 1945 that you went to Japan?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so Mom went back to Louisiana, and you were in Japan for a year and a half?
Yeah, the war had been over with the Japanese for about a year when I was over there. I flew over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the two cities that we bombed with nuclear weapons. So I had that witness. I was able to see what a nuclear weapon can do. That picture, I took a picture of Nagasaki from the airplane, and I still have it in my office. But I stared at that city with all the buildings gone, but also 100,000 people, women, kids, were gone as well. And that's had a serious effect on my later career in the when I had to worry about security against those things. If we
So after 1947 or so, you came back to the United States and
went
got out
right,
of the Army and
yeah, went right
back to IU.
That's right. I went back and they gave me credit for some of the courses I took in the military, so they handed me my bachelor's degree. So when I got back, but I went ahead and signed up for it, went through the whole process of getting a master's and a doctorate. And
right.
It turned out that they said my doctorate was in mathematics and theoretical physics, whatever that means. Mm. But anyhow, that's what I did. And I thought I was going to teach because that's all I knew about. But some people from what is now National Security Agency, back then it was called the Armed Forces Security Agency, showed up at the campus and asked me if I wanted to work in codes and ciphers. So I said yes. So that affected the next 50 years of my, actually more than 50 years of my life, because that's been my world.
You started working in Falls Church, Virginia at, I don't remember the name of the place.
Yeah, I don't either.
Something Hall.
Yeah, Arlington Hall.
Arlington Hall in Falls Church. And you worked there for a little while and then went overseas to England.
Yeah.
In 54, I guess it was, we went over to
Yeah, when I worked at
Arlington.
Arlington Hall, I was in the offense. That's trying to read other people's mail, trying to not. I wasn't in the security side of it then. Went through a lot of the processes of how we went about breaking codes and breaking systems and so forth.
At that time, did you actually work on traffic, or did you work on methods of ditch correcting?
Oh, you do both. We had actual targets. Yeah.
Okay.
If you remember back in that particular day, we had just during World War II, our enemies were Germany and Japan, but this is in 1951 and so forth. I don't think we quite knew who our enemies were. We had some disagreements with Russia and others, but so we were looking at traffic from all over the world and trying to make some sense out of it and take advantage of whatever. But it was true that very soon I was with a group of about a dozen mathematicians.
Just hold it there. Okay, just pick it up.
Ready?
Yeah.
The idea there was that we were trying to, well, let me go back a little bit. World War II is a bunch of tricks to codes and ciphers, or having a whole bunch of trickery stuff and assuming people didn't know how they worked or anything. What we tried to do was to turn it into a science. In other words, try to use mathematics and physics and things like that to find solutions and also to find ways to design the things. So almost about 1953, somewhere like that, 54, something like that, I moved over to the defensive side because I wanted to find ways of encrypting and doing all that sort of thing, which were based on mathematics that where we knew that nobody in the world knew how to solve them. So
what you were doing in Cheltenham, is working with the British to.
They sent me over there, yeah.
To work defensively.
Yeah, there wasn't anybody. I was the first person, first American they sent over there to work with the British, and I worked with their defensive side,
Now, jumping back just a couple of years, you were sent out to UCLA to work on the Southwest Area computer, the SWAT computer.
Yeah.
They were.
That was during that first period I've forgotten about for the moment. Back
when 1952 or 1953.
Yeah. We.
That was the first time they used computers to programmable computers to do cryptography.
That's correct, and to do cryptanalysis. Yeah. The thing I wanted to do there was we were trying to protect some top secrets, and we assumed that somebody might try to read some of those messages 40 years from then. So we want to know what one of those computers might look like in the year 2000. You know, we were back in before 1960 and whatever. So the idea was I met with a whole lot of computer people. I went to London, for example, and met with a bunch of experts in computers, trying to figure out what was a computer going to look like 40 years from now. And I'm staring at a great big UNIVAC computer that fills an entire room, and not trying to imagine what we didn't imagine. Nobody even thought we would have these little tiny things that are the size of your fingernail. But we did a pretty good job of protecting, and I thought it was interesting that one of the British folks told me that any science, the more you know about it, the faster it grows. So the rate at which it increases, the rate at which you learn and in this case the computers the rate will increase according to how much is known. So it becomes an exponential thing. So if you're trying to anticipate what one can do in the year 2000, you can work out some exponential formula, and that's what we tried to do, and to base our. Anyhow, that was and as I said before, we tried to use tried to base the arithmetic, what the crypto machine does, as a mathematics problem that doesn't have a solution, doesn't have a easy solution anyhow. Almost every mathematics problem you can trial and error, so the computer could just try all possible keys or something, but that was something.
You've told me many times about President Kennedy